whenever you can.
Okay, I'm still listening.
Share screen is when
Okay,
you can put up a presentation.
Linda, you'll just have to mute because we have now gone live.
Down here.
And
Begin the
what
meeting.
Jeffrey does is totally.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, good morning, everyone. It is 9 o'clock on Thursday, September 29th. And so I will call the special meeting of council to order. With that, I just want to note that Councillor Clark is still not able to be with us. He did get caught in the storm out east and he is not able to attend this meeting today. I'm going to start with the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that Dysart et al. Is located on Treaty 20 Michi-Sagig territory and in the traditional territory of the Michi-Sagig and Chippewa nations, collectively known as Williams First Treaty Nations, which include Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Beausoleil, and Georgina Island First Nations. These ancestral homes are more than a place where the Anishinaabe hunted, fished, gathered, and grew their food long before the settlers' arrival. Indigenous peoples cared for these lands and waters and have welcomed us as their guest. We pay them respect by ensuring we continue to recognize their ongoing connection to the area and by supporting the health and integrity of the lands and community for generations to come. With that, I will look for a mover and a seconder to adopt our agenda. Deputy Mayor Kennedy and Councillor McKechnie. Be it resolved that the agenda for the special meeting of the Council of the Municipality of Dysart et al. Held on September 29, 2022 be approved as presented. All in favor? Councillor Wood Roberts.
Yes.
Great, carried. I'll look to see if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest. Seeing and hearing none. What we actually do for the members of the public who are watching this meeting is we open in a council meeting and then we adjourn that council meeting to go into a public meeting. So it may seem strange. We are not adjourning the meeting. So I do look for a mover and a seconder to adjourn to go into the public meeting. Councillor Smith is moving and seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Be it resolved that council hereby adjourns the special meeting of council at 9:05 a.m. to proceed into a public meeting to consider official plan amendment application D00-OP-2021-001 and zoning bylaw amendment application D14-ZB-2021-006 known as Harbor Holdings Limited. All in favor? Okay, so carried.
Yes.
Great. Okay, pardon me, I'm having some technical issues here. So we are now in the into the public meeting. At the beginning of the public meeting, I'm going to read a little preamble that explains how public meetings are held and the order. But I've also written a specific personal note for today's meeting. So I'm just going to read that out if I could. So before we begin the public meeting, I'd just like to say a few words. This file has been with the municipality for some time and we have been posting information as it came in on our website. There's been a lot of discussion and information being shared in the community, but I've also seen some misinformation. So this is today, it's the municipality's responsibility under the Planning Act to receive applications. And then when all the comments from other parties and agencies such as the county, MNR, et cetera, have been received, all studies have been complete and submitted, and often they are peer reviewed. The completed application must come forward to a public meeting and we cannot delay that process. So that has been suggested. Our senior planner is going to begin with the staff report and then we turn it over to the applicant and his planner. Then there will be an opportunity for members of the public committee, meaning councillors, to ask questions. After that, we'll open it up to the people who have registered to speak. We have granted an exception to the 5-minute speaking time to DM Wills, who are representing the Friends of Grass Lake, and they're being allotted a 20-minute speaking time. I'll then ask the committee members if they could hold their questions until after all the speakers. If, however, staff or the applicant want to correct or address a public comment, they will have the opportunity to do so. That portion of the meeting is not intended to be debate. My role as chair is to hold a meeting that is respectful and orderly, and I will remind people that any comments must be based on planning concerns. We have 23 registered speakers, so I ask that people be respectful of our time And if a concern has already been raised and addressed, it does not need to be repeated. Keep in mind, we will be taking breaks throughout this meeting and there is no end time to this meeting. Lastly, I want to thank our staff, in particular Chris Orson and Jeff Isles, who have been working on this since the pre-consultation began in 2019. The amount of information has been daunting, but they've done an excellent job to keep that in order to get to today's meeting. So with that, I'm going to read the more technical notes for a public meeting. The purpose of a public meeting is to present planning applications in a planning forum as required by the Planning Act. This is a public meeting to consider one proposed zoning amendment to the Dysart et al. Zoning Bylaw 2005-120. During the public meeting, Council will consider all information available regarding the proposed amendment, review the staff report, which includes any public comments received to date, and listen to all comments provided during the meeting. Following presentations by staff and the applicant, council members will be afforded the opportunity to ask questions. At that point, the meeting then gets open to the public for further questions. This meeting and future meetings will be hosted via electronic participation until further notice. Any oral or written submissions received in advance of the meeting will be verbally read aloud at the time the application is considered. Information regarding live streaming of the public meeting is available on the Municipality of Dysart et al. Website. All persons who have pre-registered will have an opportunity to present or ask questions about the proposal. Once I open the floor for public comments, registered attendees that wish to speak will be brought in sequential order. Each registered person, have 5 minutes to provide comments or ask questions. I will raise my hand at the 4-minute and 30-second mark as a notice. And at the 5-minute mark, the speaker will be placed back as an attendee without warning. So keep mindful of the time yourself. When it is your turn to speak, please state your name and your relation to the application prior to speaking. I ask you direct all questions and comments to myself as the chair. No decisions are made at the public meeting on applications, and a public meeting is held to gather public comments. After the public meeting is over, the meeting will be adjourned and returned to regular council. The application will be considered by council for a decision on this matter during the planning and land information portion of the council agenda. Once council has made a decision on the proposed amendment, notice will be circulated as per the Planning Act. All those persons who have given the municipality written notice that they would like to receive notice of the decision will receive a copy of the decision. And you must make this request to the municipality in writing. The Planning Act specifies that if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of Dysart et al. Before the proposed bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the municipality to the local appeal tribunal and may not be added as a party to an appeal unless in the opinion of the tribunal there are reasonable grounds to do so. We will now commence the public meeting as per the agenda, and I'm going to turn it over to our senior planner, Chris Orson, who's going to go through a fairly lengthy staff report. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor Roberts and members of council, and to the public in attendance today to speak to this proposal and those that are watching. Additional thanks to Danielle Hicks and Tammy Wilson for all their help on compiling all the public comments, which are extremely important to consideration of applications. So I also want to thank the rest of the planning team as well. And thank you, Mayor Roberts, for that intro. So I'm just going to share my screen here, and then we can go through the presentation. Not sure if everybody can hear or see me.
I don't see anything up on your screen yet. It says, oh, there we go.
Okay,
and then
so it's up now.
It is up now.
Okay, perfect. Okay. There we go. Okay, so the subject property is located within the west portion of Dysart along County Road 21 and Peninsula Road. The subject property has frontage, as mentioned, along County Road 21, Peninsula Road, and Grass Lake. Surrounding designated land uses are suburban residential, medium density residential, and commercial and waterfront residential uses. Surrounding properties are predominantly commercial and low density uses, which include the Halliburton Veterinarian Clinic, Lakeview Motel, suburban residential, and again, waterfront residential. Higher density uses to the north of the subject property across from County Road 21 being medium density residence, which is the Whispering Pines, and commercial Tim Horton, which is the Tim Hortons use. The planning process. So the Planning Act sets out the ground rules for land use planning in Ontario. On June 1st, 2021, the applicant initiated the required public consultation strategy as outlined in the municipal official plan. Subsequent letters were provided by the applicant to neighboring property owners with additional information related to their concerns. On June 14th, 2021, the applicant submitted the application to the municipality of Dysart, which was deemed a complete application on August 23rd, 2021, meaning that all the required studies for the application were provided to the municipality, which then were further peer reviewed by the municipal engineer. September 7th, 2021, additional notice of complete application informed adjacent owners of the application and that the applicant had provided all required studies and reports that the meeting date would be set in the near future once all material has been reviewed by the municipality. On September 6, 2022, notice of the public meeting was circulated in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. All submitted and new related, all material related to the application were posted and updated on the municipal plan and land information website for the public access throughout this process. All studies and reports were peer reviewed by the municipal engineer. As of September 28th, 2022, the municipality has received the following: 11 letters of support, 14 letters of concern, 50 letters of objection, and a petition of 912 signatures that object the proposed application. The application was circulated in accordance with the requirements of the Ontario Planning Act and reviewed in context with the applicable policies of the provincial policy statement, the county official plan, and the municipal official plan. The applicant is submitting to redesignate the lands to suburban residential areas, which are the areas shaded in the light yellow. Mixed use areas with low impact commercial uses, which is the color shaded in the orange, and environmental protection areas, which is shaded in green. The primary objectives of the official plan is to enhance and preserve those environmental qualities which contribute to the attraction of the municipality. Propose healthy, livable, and safe communities, the promotion of strong communities, promotion of economic sustainability and vitality, encourage patterns and development which minimize servicing costs, and protection of public health and safety. Subject to satisfying the requirements of the holding provision for the subject property, the proposal as submitted will generally conform to the municipal official plan. Screen. The applicant is proposing to change the zoning of the subject property as part of these applications from rural type 1 and environmental protection to suburban residential exception zones for the proposed retained lot and proposed lots 2 and 3. Highway commercial is being proposed. Highway commercial exception zone is being proposed for lot 1. An environmental protection exception zone will be applied to the low-lying areas, which is shaded in the yellow, and the upland wetland area, which is shaded in green, and the human-made pond, which is outlined and labeled as pond. The proposed zoning would have the effect of permitting up to a maximum of 88 total units. We'll have low impact commercial uses, accurately delineating the boundary of the wetland, requiring that all structures be set back a minimum of 30 meters from the high water mark of the lake, wetland, human-made pond, and stream. Implementing a planting buffer strips, reducing parking requirements to 1.5 parking spaces per dwelling unit for the proposed developments. Implementing a shoreline vegetation buffer width of 30 meters, 30 meters minimum. Prohibiting the use of a marine facility dock on the proposed lots, and including holding provisions on all the proposed lots. In addition to the official plan amendment, the zoning bylaw amendment, the applicant had submitted several severance proposal for pre-consultation process with the municipality. The proposal will create 1 retained lot and 3 severed lots. The proposal will be subject to severance agreement, which will implement the recommendations and mitigation measures outlined in the applicable studies and reports. The proposed severance is subject to approvals of the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment. The severance application to be processed by the County of Haliburton upon approvals of the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment, and subject to the implementation of the proposed conditions in the severance report. The proposed is generally consistent with the PPS and generally conforms to the municipal official plan. The development concept sketch provided by the applicant illustrates the following. Approximate usable building areas, which are shaded in the light beige color. These proposed usable building areas are located at the top of slope on the subject property and include a 30-meter setback. The maximum building limit shown in the red line, as you can see on the plan, is the proposed 30-meter setback from the common cattail marsh, which is the low-lying areas, and from the upland wetland areas, stream, and pond. The areas shaded in dark green is the approximate existing forest to be retained on the site. The areas shaded in light green are the approximate lands to be reforested. This area will be subject to the revegetation of 200 trees and shrubs as outlined in the EIS and WSA. Slide. This slide further illustrates the proposed severed lots and approximate usable building areas shaded in beige overlaid onto the aerial for context. The proposed is a 2-tier process subject to approvals of the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment and the severance. The owner will be subject to site plan control, which is one of the conditions of the holding provisions recommended in the zoning bylaw amendment. The site plan process will require the registered owner to submit additional studies, plans, and reports as part of the proposed development of the properties. Throughout the process, the applicant has made several amendments to the original proposal. The proposal of a single dock on the retained lot has now been withdrawn. Minimum extent of forest to be retained on each lot. Setback buffer around the pond has been increased from 20 meters to 30 meters through discussion with the municipality. Building setback of 30 meters to be established from the stream on severed lot 1. And patio deck within the wetland buffer on the retained land to be limited to 20 square meters per the municipal zoning bylaw. And a viewing platform will no longer be proposed over the pond. Protection of the natural heritage species is to accurately delineate the environmental protection boundary. Land designated as the natural and naturalized buffers. The use is to be restricted to a 2-meter wide pedestrian path in those areas. The owner is to plant a minimum of the 200 trees and shrubs within 1 year of receiving planning approvals. Protection of vegetation during construction. Timing and tree removal within developable areas. A homeowner brochure provided to all residents to protect natural heritage features. site servicing including water storm management plans, and design elements equivalent to enhanced levels of water quality treatment for proposed development. Stormwater management plans to include a sedimentation and erosion control program, enhanced mitigation measures to separate blanding turtles and other species at risk from the development, to provide wetland buffers, and species at risk training to be provided to site contractors. Staff highlight the following information provided in the hydrogeology study. On-site storage will be required on each lot to meet the peak per person domestic water requirements. Proposed well 1, which is in the report or in the study as lot 1, but is considered the proposed severance lot 1, can sustain up to 36 domestic units or less amounts if commercial uses are also introduced in a long-term pumping scenario. Proposed well on lot number 2, which is the retained lot in the proposal, could sustain up to 16 domestic units, and again in the long-term pumping scenario. However, is susceptible to drought conditions due to limited available downdraw. It is recommended that the second well be installed on lot 2 to provide additional water supply capacity. The proposed well 3, which is on the proposed severance 2 in the application, can sustain up to 36 domestic units in this long-term pumping scenario. And the proposed well 4, which is the proposed severance lot 3, is not able to support long-term pumping scenarios and could support up to only 9 domestic units in short term. It is highly recommended that it undergoes hydrofracking and an additional well to be installed on these sites to supply the water supply and water security. It was noted that well interference was recorded at 1014 Peninsula Road during the pumping tests. And then overall, they outline that no adverse impacts to nearby water uses or the natural environment are anticipated from the pumping of the test of wells located on the Long Peninsula Road. So they do outline that there were some interferences, and further to that, staff are recommending that the holding provisions on all be applied to all the lots. Prior to site plan approvals, the owner will be required to submit the hydrogeology report satisfactory to the municipal engineer and the Ministry of Environment, Conservation, Parks to demonstrate sufficient water supply for the proposed development. So staff have added this sort of additional measurement to ensure that there is the adequate water supply at the time of planning approvals. And then I'm just going to go to the next slide. So the application was circulated in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act and reviewed within the applicable policies of the provincial policy statement, which is the PPS, the county official plan, and the municipal official plan. As noted, as of September 28, 2022, the municipality has received 11 letters of support, 14 letters of concerns, 15 letters of objection, and a petition of 912 signatures that object to the proposed application. I'm just going to quickly just read out the following who have provided letters. Catherine Guthrie and Stephen Belanger, Carolyn Langdon, Jan Garrow, which is the vice president from the Lake Kashega-Wigma organization, Angela and Yurig Heidecke, Jamie and Earl Meisner, Lori and Marianne McGee, Lisa and Richard Lawton, James Meisner, Carolyn Plummer, June and Douglas Devlin, Gail King, Elon Grieger, Carolyn and Peter Warren, Halliburton Veterinarian Services, Lyndon and Gary Williams, Leslie Ann Hayes and Gordon Hodson. The Salmon family, Karen Lynn Work and Devin Wilson. Sandrine Doust, Donald Ross and family, Donald Ross and grandchildren, Linda Harrison, Wendy and David Ugovy, Catherine Swift, Sherry Shell, Catherine Salmon and David Smith, John Cowan, Susan Keith, Jennifer and Paul Hodges, David Douglas and Sharon Robertson, Mary Lynn and Gary Plummer, John and Holly McDonald, Catherine McRae, Orville Levy, Marie Ventesco, Nicholas Swift, Sean Foster and Danielle Clements, Stephen Belanger, Lynn Childs, Beverly Conybear, Margaret Zahn, Catherine and Gary Zakib, John and Chris Postlethwaite, Catherine Gosso and Don Finley, Jackie Gentle, Daryl Stamp, Nora Isaacs, Catherine Lawton, Chachipo and Chris Chachipo, Keely Schmidt, Rick Whitaker, Mark Feldman and Adele Atkinson, Stephen Hayen, Chris Miller, Gerald and Dale Walker, Lynn and John Child, Dino Purcell, Bright Woods Landscaping and Contracting, Amy Koish, Chris O'Mara, Susan Tromenhauser, Linda Harrison, Friends of Grass Lake, Halliburton County Development Corporation, Barbara Smith, Marion Langdon, David McLennan, Wilma Thompson, Beverly Thompson, Nancy Cook, Dale and Brian Hawkins, Nancy and Barry Lavender, Sam and Janice Palumbo, and Kimberly Roberts. All public letters are attached in their entirety as public records for council's decision. The public letters have been summarized into the following categories based on the comments from the above noted public. Before staff reads the consolidated comments, it's important that these comments are to be heard and that council is satisfied that they have been addressed. And that leads us to this the slide here. So I can just go through these summarized comments. I'm just going to take a drink of water though, if you just excuse me for a second.
That's okay.
Thank you. So the first one is based on active transportation, which outline that concerns with seniors walking with no sidewalks, walking on inclines, bends, and blind corners, and danger for pedestrians and dogs. The next one is related to air quality. Air quality decreased with further tree removal. The next summarized points is the amount of proposed units. So number of units not blending into existing surroundings. Boat traffic. So concerned about the power boats destroying the wetlands and shoreline. Increased traffic causes increased overall pollution, increased boat traffic, and lake cannot handle increased boat traffic. Environmental impacts. Concerns about the environmental impact on the EP zone. Docking in the wetland. Docking affecting ecosystem, difficult enforcing the non-motorized dock, and motorized power boats as a result of the development. Fill of the wetland. Further damage of the wetland by filling. Concern about current fills in wetland. Concerned about blocking the watercourse and flooded areas being filled. Concerned about building on previous wetlands that were filled in. Concerns related to hydro. Concerns that proposed will overload hydro system. Go to the next slide. Development location. Concerned about location. Suggestion that development shouldn't have direct water access. Concerned that development location will impact land value. Concerned about overdevelopment of the lake with the proposed location. The disruption of peace and tranquility. Suggests that the north side of County Road 21 is a better location. Navigate or negative effects on the resale value of properties and increase trespassers on undeveloped land. Then we have the comments related to invasive species, increased in terrestrial and aquatic invasive species, concerned about the increase of invasive snails. And then we have comments related to light pollution. Is the condo and commercial building will increase light pollution. Further light pollution on Grass Lake on top of Tim Hortons Independent Marina, Home Hardware and Curry Motors, etc. Unfunneled light. We have related to the housing crisis. Municipality needs housing. Businesses need staff, but lack of housing options discourage professionals as well as qualified trade and service workers from relocating. Approving the first phase of Harbor and Holdings development further demonstrates commitment to solving Halliburton's housing shortage. And companies feel negative impacts of shortage for workers. More housing options may alleviate the shortage of workers, commute to the county, and increase fuel prices no longer viable. Fuel prices no longer viable option. Noise pollution. 88 units will create or will increase noise as opposed to 10 or 12 cottages. Increased noise from construction would be unbearable. Increased noise from potential short-term rentals and Airbnbs. Recreation capacity. Concerned about recreation capacity being increased. Sewer treatment capacity. Sewer plant not having enough capacity for proposed development. Demanded condition and capacity investigation of the sewer plan. Questions how the municipality will ensure that sewage removal will remain unaffected by the increased capacity. Who will pay for the upgrade sewage system? Comments related to traffic. Concerned about the increased traffic at the corner of County Road 21 and Peninsula Road. Increased traffic entering downtown from the west side of town. Current drivers not abiding by the 50-kilometer rule. Concerned about the turning lane and road surface not being wide enough. Commercial operations for the increased traffic continued. Increased traffic and increased impacts with commercial operation. Too much commercial development within Halliburton. Further species concerns. Concerned about habitats to the red-winged blackbird, eastern wood peewee, and the loons, bat species, goose, ducks, woodpeckers, turkeys, turtles, deer, moose, etc. Fish spawning habitat and concerned about development on habitat wildlife. Species at risk and endangered. Concerned about the Blandings turtles habitat and shoreline erosion, further shoreline erosion. Water quality and lake health, impacts of development on water quality. Possible increased seaweed decreasing water quality. Water quality impacted by water runoff and drainage. Degrading water quality downstream and on the 5 chain of lakes. Water supply and drinking water. Concerned about the impact of development on water supply with neighboring wells. Problems with the well-being impacts by testing. water quality changed by clear to brown and muddy when Palmer began testing, and concerned that the water table wouldn't be sufficient. Concerns with tree clearing, concerned about further tree removal as trees have already been cleared. Increased tree clearing causes increased runoff. And then we have wetlands, destruction of the wetland and ecosystem of Grass Lake, and concerns wanting an Ontario wetland evaluation system to be evaluated of the wetland. So that concludes all of the public comments that were summarized that were received to date, and that includes staff's presentation. And I will put it back to you, Mayor Roberts.
Okay, thank you, Chris, for that. Yeah, you might want to keep your water handy. We'll be talking a lot today. So the next step now is to turn it over to our applicant. And I'm not sure, is it just Tony Usher coming on screen? I'll wait and find out when Tony's on. And we just need your video on, if possible. Good morning.
Morning. Yes, it is just me.
Okay, very good. I had to, Mr. Wilson's name there as well. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and I believe you have a presentation. Oh, Mr. Wilson is on screen. There we go. But I'm going to turn it over to you, Tony, to present your application.
Thank you. I just got to get the
Yep.
screen sharing figured out here. Okay, are we good?
Yes, we see your presentation. Go right ahead.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Roberts, and good morning to council and the public and who are here this morning. And I'd like to, first of all, thank staff for their very informative presentation and their responsiveness to the applicant and myself over the last 3 years. And sorry, just trying to get the go down. Whoops, there we are. Okay. So I'm the reason my picture is here is not out of ego. It's because my colleague Gord Nielsen, who did all the environmental work on this project and who we would normally very much want to have as part of this presentation, cannot attend today. He is in the middle of a very large and complex Ontario Land Tribunal hearing, and he sends his regrets. He has contributed a portion of this presentation, but that's his visual appearances on this slide. So, and I'm just going to say, oh yeah, I want to just say a little bit about what I want to do this morning. You've had a lot of information from staff's very informative presentation. There's a great deal of information about these applications posted on the municipality's current development applications page. And I am not going to repeat it or even try to highlight it. I just want to say one thing one time during this meeting, and that every document that I will refer to has been posted and is available on that site, unless I say otherwise. So I'm not going to keep saying, well, that document is on the site. I am going to briefly highlight a very few key issues. And then, of course, the applicant, who is also here today, Paul Wilson, and available to answer questions. He and I are going to listen. As the mayor said, I will try to answer questions and address any new issues raised when the opportunity is there to do so. So I just have put these three maps in case there's any reason that I might need later on to have to go back to them. I'm not going to really talk about them. This is simply an air photo, which shows the Grass Lake and the subject property at the west end. This is from the EIS, and I think it's about the best photo that shows an air photo that has the property boundary superimposed on the air photo. That is the current state of the property. And this one, you've already seen, Chris talked about it. And the only additional thing I will say, he did a good description of what the different colors mean. I will just emphasize again that the colored areas and the white area basically inside the northern severance are the areas that would be zoned RS or CH for development. The pond and everything to the on the east side of the property inside the heavy black line, which is both flooded land and an upland wetland, would be within the EP zone. So just going to review very quickly the work that was done to support these applications. And I think it's pretty much all in the staff report. There's a planning report from me. There were technical reports by qualified professionals, environmental, archaeological, hydrogeological. There was a traffic impact brief that was subsequently requested. And then Dysart's peer reviewer reviewed all of these except for the traffic brief, which came in later. And as well, there is an addendum that was done to the EIS at the request of the peer reviewer. And that included specifically, among other things, measures to address the presence of Blanding's turtles on the property. And that was reviewed by the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, which is responsible for species at risk. And all of the peer reviewers' concerns were satisfied. The traffic brief has more recently been peer reviewed, and that the peer review of that just came in a couple of days ago, and their concerns are very minor and technical. And I want to emphasize that no technical reports contrary to any of this information by qualified professionals have been put forward. I should make clear that I don't consider the planning report to be a technical report, and I know that the Friends of Grass Lake have professional planners, but that I'm not including them in that statement. First issue I want to talk about briefly is the location of this property within the settlement area. This site is inside the Halliburton Village urban area, which is the black line on the two map pieces that I have stuck together on this slide that come from the official plan. And this urban boundary has been in place in the municipality's planning documents for decades. The site has good public road access and it has sewage service. And most similar lands that are within the designated urban area that are west of the village center have already been designated suburban residential in the official plan, and they have already been zoned RS, which is what we are seeking. So then the key planning tests become, once this is in place, and in my opinion, the good planning tests then become, is the site physically suitable and is water supply available? And those in our opinion have already been satisfactorily answered by the technical reports. And then will the environment and lake water quality be protected? And is the proposal compatible with neighbors? And that's what I'm going to focus on now. Now, the next three slides basically prepared by Gord. So of course, the first key issue is environmental protection. And as Gord says, the natural environment, including protecting Grass Lake, has been our leading consideration in proposing development of these lands. That comes first, and everything else has been conceived around that. The wetlands are the primary constraint, and I would also say the primary asset. They occur all along the shoreline, as everybody knows, and they provide excellent fish and wildlife habitat. The proposal will protect all of the wetlands with 30-meter development setbacks in which all existing forest will remain and all the cleared areas will be renaturalized, as shown on the sketch with the green and orange colors. And though docks would normally be permitted at a lot like this, and they are technically permitted now, there will in fact be none on this property. Excuse me. Continuing with environmental protection, the pond on the property that has become naturalized over the 10 years since it was built, 10 plus years. It has environmental benefits complementary to the wetlands, and it will be protected with a 30-meter renaturalized setback. There's a small drainage course in Severance 1, I think Chris pointed this out, that conveys local runoff, and that will also be protected by a setback. Of the present forest, over 2/3 will be retained, and over 2/3 of the areas that are currently open will be renaturalized. That will take time, but it will start with an immediate tree and shrub planting to kickstart the reforestation process. And careful attention was also paid to protecting the quality of the stormwater runoff to Grass Lake through recommended best management practices. Continuing with environment, species at risk, including Blanding's turtle and significant wildlife habitat, have been appropriately considered and will be protected. In addition to wetland and watercourse protection and buffering, there will be contractor training, wildlife exclusion fencing, and stewardship information for residents. Peer review of all work, as already mentioned, all of it has been peer reviewed, and there has been species at risk consultation with the province. And in summary, it is Gord Nielsen's opinion that, and I share this opinion, that the natural environment has been properly considered and will receive a high level of protection with this development. And then another point specifically on forest protection. 8 hectares of the property is in the proposed RS and CH zones. And that is all dry land. So we're not including the upland, wetland, and we're not including the pond. And of that area, over 2/3 of that is now forest, 69%. And of that whole area, 45% of it will be within the protected buffers, mainly the 30-meter setbacks from the water and the wetland. Now, of that total 8 hectares, it is an estimated 22% would be cleared for the development, but 22% of the total property that is now clear would be reforested. So after renaturalization takes place, these zones will still end up being 69% forest as at present. The rest of the property, 6.9 hectares, is the flooded lands and the upland wetland, including the pond, that would all be in the EP zone and would all be entirely protected. Now I'd like to turn to the issue of compatibility with the larger Grass Lake neighborhood. All of Grass Lake, except for the South Shore, is in the Halliburton Village settlement area today and has been for a long time. Also on Grass Lake, besides the residences, is the Halliburton Hospital at the east end and 2 commercial lots on the north side on the County Road 21. There is also, as everybody knows, there is more commercial development on the north side of County Road 21, and there is medium density residential development on the north side of the road. The existing residential development on the lake is quite dense. Most of the residential lots are very small by today's standards. They have only 20 to 30 meters frontage. Many of them have cleared shorelands, and half of the lots approximately are still on, half of them are on municipal sewers, and half of them are still on private septic. And most of the private septic lots will stay that way with systems of varying age and quality unless and until sewage lines are extended. There's only a few lots that have a pipe but have not tied up to it. Continuing with compatibility, on the other hand, the proposed development will have fully forested and protected shorelines. It will have stringent stormwater protection. It will have municipal sewage service. There will be only one lot that even touches the open water, which is the retained lot with the so-called point, and no docks will be allowed on that or any other lot. And as well, the buildings will still be subject to the same 9.5 meter height limit.
Excuse me, Tony.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but there are technical problems at the municipal office. So,
Oh,
sorry to interrupt you. So we'll have to. I'll
No
just keep in
problem.
touch here with the mayor, and we'll see if we can get you back. Sorry to interrupt you.
thank you.
Tony, can you hear me on this device?
Yeah, I'm good. Can you hear me?
I'm gonna hang up.
Would you like staff to join from another iPad?
Yeah, so Tony, what happened here at Dysart? It looks like we had a little, we all got booted out. We didn't realize you were still continuing. So for members of the public who are watching and carrying on, we're just gonna try to rejig things here. So just give us 1 minute. I can be listening in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So if anyone can, I don't even know if staff have the ability to do a recess for 15 minutes. But I'm sorry about this. This has never happened at our end. So what time is it? I'm just trying to look. It is
9:53.
yeah. So let's try to touch back at 10:05. So those we can't actually stop the live stream at this point, right? Because we don't have
just
it.
pause it?
Yeah, we'll
Are we
figure
able to
out
pause
through
it?
IT if we can stop it.
Yeah, so for those of you listening and for Tony, if everyone wants to actually just turn their screens off, counselors as well, and just turn your screens back on at 10:05, and we will see if we have the issue resolved here. If not, we'll have a backup plan. So 10:05, sorry, Tony.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay.
I need to reconnect.
Okay, we're gonna. Yeah. We are almost there. Okay, I've got my mic on with no feedback, I think. So I'm just going to look to the sidebar where I can see Deputy Mayor Kennedy. Can you hear me? You can. Well. Who knew? It's so for those of you listening, all of a sudden, all our phones went down and everything went down, but staff that were viewing the meeting on different devices, like an iPad in their office, were fine. Us here in the council chamber were not fine. And